Man, you guys, I love that video. Yeah, you got to appreciate the irony there. Probably the two men most wanted dead by the left, dancing to staying alive. In fact, the left hated the Elon Trump interview so much that they're now filing a lawsuit or attempting to file a lawsuit with the FEC to try to essentially say that Elon Musk was campaigning for Trump. Oh my God. Ironic, though, that the left would pull a stunt like that, considering Kamala's been caught paying Google essentially to alter ads for her, to essentially rewrite headlines for news articles, and lots of news articles, in fact. And that's not the only thing she's been caught doing here recently, if we're being honest. It's like the whole media is pouring out love for Kamala Harris as if they're campaigning for her. It's lie after lie after lie after lie while they paint the right to be just awful. We're going to talk about a lot of those things. We're also going to talk about all of Kamala's accomplishments as we get into this podcast right here on Southern Traditions on the Southern Drawl Podcast. Let's get it. Well, guys, welcome to the Southern Drawl Podcast. We're so glad you joined us here. We have a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to get through it before 30, 40 minutes passes me by. So let's get right on it. First of all, back to the state media thing, man. Come on, look. The Kamala Harris campaign has been caught red-handed. Red-handed. What have they been caught red-handed doing? Well, they are faking news headlines on Google. And this is for lots of different news outlets that are participating in this. We're going to show you a lot of those right now, but here's some of them right here, right off the bat. Axios is reporting Harris campaign's Google ads rewrite news headlines. Then you've got, what is this one from? This is the Daily Caller reporting Harris campaign Google could face a lawsuit after fake news headline scheme. Interesting. Isn't it funny how everything they accuse the Trump campaign or the right of doing ends up being complete bullshit while they are actually trying to do that same exact thing themselves? It is absolutely incredible and disgusting at the same time. And it does make you wonder, why? Why is the media so in love with this candidate? What is the deal here? I mean, just looking at her accomplishments and her history, her past, none of it leaves a lot of hope for the future. None of it screams she's going to do great things at all. I mean, in fact, I would simply ask, what are you waiting for, Kamala? Like, seriously. You keep saying in your first 100 days you're going to do all these things, but you've already been in the White House for over 3 years, almost 4 years now. What are you waiting for? When are you going to do something? You have had 4 years almost to sell yourself to the American people. And had you been doing that the whole time, guess what? We would be like looking at a candidate like that we actually know something about. But instead, you got the media covering for you, painting all these beautiful pictures of this person you're supposed to be that we know nothing about because, well, your campaign is hiding you just like they did Joe Biden. Hiding you because, I don't know why, they're afraid you can't speak off the cuff. They're afraid you can't actually put a sentence together without a teleprompter. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm just spitballing here. But the state media, why are you covering for her? I mean, shouldn't you be asking her some questions? I mean, some legitimate questions? I think you should. I mean, if we're being honest, there's a lot of questions that the American people need answers to. Victor Davis Hanson points this out beautifully. He's one of my favorite contributors. He writes a lot for the Daily Caller. We're going to read about one of his articles. This article is entitled, The Weird, Creepy, Surreal, and Dangerous 2024 Campaign. He says the already long 2024 presidential campaign has become the strangest in modern history. Here are 10 unanswered questions that illustrate how and why we've entered this bizarro world. There's actually more than 10 here, and we're going to read them. How can Kamala Harris merely promise us fixes to come in 2025 for inflation and an open border when she is still vice president for another 6 months? Why can't she enact her proposed solutions to help these problems, which she helped create right now? I just asked that question. Good question, Victor Davis Hanson. Number 2, would the media prefer to help her win but lose further credibility themselves by failing to ask why she has disowned her last 3 decades of leftist agendas, or to reclaim some of their reputations and thereby risk losing her? Does the left appreciate the new campaign and election protocols it has now established? This is to say, cancel by fiat their virtual nominee for 4 months before the election when he sinks in the polls, nullify the outcome of a year of primaries and the will of 14 million voters. Well, we talked about that in one of our other podcasts, A Coup for Kamala. You guys should check that out if you haven't already. Threaten a sitting president with removal by the 25th Amendment process unless he steps aside as his party nominee. Anoint a replacement nominee before the convention and without a single primary, and then prevent any rival candidates from challenging her. These are great questions, honestly. These are things we need to know the answers to. Number 4, after the precedents of 2020 and 2024, is the future orthodox protocol for any Democrat nominee now to avoid all interviews and extempore speaking and stick to teleprompted speeches and scripted responses only? That's a great question. I did just ask that question, I think. Yeah. Is the fear that a transparent, progressive messenger with an overt and honest left-wing message will double down on it and thus guarantee defeat? For the next 80 days, has the chameleon-like Kamala now become a temporary MAGA candidate as she expropriates former President Donald Trump's positions from border security to no taxes on tips? Does the media care to ask the new 80-day MAGA Harris why she has renounced many of her once emphatic beliefs? If Democratic presidential re-election candidate Joe Biden was pronounced fit as a fiddle before June 27th, but after July 21st was abruptly forced off the ticket as too debilitated to continue as his party's nominee, what exactly is his status now? That is a very important question. It kind of leads to who's running the country. I mean, think about that, guys. Half cognizant and thus able enough to continue his not so important task as America's president, but also half enfeebled and thus utterly unable to continue as the far more important Democratic nominee, it appears. Does the new anti-Semitic Democratic Party prefer to risk losing with the radical non-entity Tim Walz as vice president rather than likely win with a popular, successful, and moderate Jewish Josh Shapiro? If one vice presidential candidate went to a war to serve with his deployed unit, while his counterpart preferred to retire from the military to avoid doing the same thing and lies about his abdication, how can the media credibly assert that the former's tour was militarily suspect and yet pronounce the latter's absence as heroic? I mean, that doesn't make sense, guys, but this is the kind of thing the state media is pushing for Kamala. It's obvious this is like totalitarian type stuff going on here. These guys, I don't know, they're being paid heavily. This is crazy. If the current president canceled his re-election bid because he was too debilitated and unpopular and is now rarely seen or heard, and if the vice president is out of Washington running a campaign in his place, but avoiding all press conferences, interviews, and unscripted addresses, who exactly, if anyone, is running the United States for the next 6 months of this lame duck Biden-Harris administration? If Trump all summer has been compared by his enemies to Hitler and his murderous Third Reich, and if a 20-year-old would-be assassin and murderer with ease took up a sniper's position to kill Trump without a notified Secret Service or other law enforcement attempting to abort the shooter's attempted assassination, what signal does that send to other would-be assassins for the next 80 days of the 2024 campaign? Is the message that if a 20-year-old amateur sniper can brazenly and visibly for nearly an hour breach all Secret Service security parameters to shoot 8 times at the president, hit him in the ear, kill one innocent bystander, and wound 2 others than almost any future more experienced serious shooter could match or exceed the ability of that disturbed amateur to get close enough to Trump to fire more than 8 shots at his head. And that shooting Trump in many leftist quarters would subsequently earn the unhinged killer eternal fame, applause, and immortality. And that if there are such anticipated rewards and perceived opportunities, then we may well see more attempts on candidate Trump's life. In some presidential campaigns traditionally kick off later or after Labor Day most often, and mostly follow accepted protocols, but this warped 2024 version violates every prior precedent and is not just creepy, but dangerous. Even before the campaign was supposed to formally begin. That last point about future attempts on Trump's life, guys, they've tried everything in their power to destroy this man, everything from Russian collusion to weaponizing the justice system, lawfare, to corrupt judges and DAs trying to suck his bank accounts dry, trying to lock him up, trying to slander his name and put him behind bars for fake made-up crimes, to now an assassination attempt where he actually was shot. And fast forward a little bit more, and he just had to make an emergency landing in his jet because of a mysterious malfunction. Not 10 days later, J.D. Vance also has to make a emergency landing because of a malfunction to the jet. Guys, I'm not a genius. I'm not a law enforcement. I'm not a detective, but I would just say Trump, Vance, y'all gotta be careful, man. So please be careful. These kind of things are absolutely dangerous. These are questions that need to be answered, but yet the Kamala Harris campaign is hiding, man. There's not been a word. It's almost been a month. A full month since she announced her campaign, and yet we have heard nothing. We have not heard her one time speak to a group of unbiased reporters, if there is such a thing. We definitely haven't heard any reporters ask hard questions the way they do Donald Trump. He's done several of these press conferences where he just stands there and answers whatever bullshit question they throw at him, no matter how ridiculous it is or how tough they think they are asking these questions. He doesn't shy away, and neither does J.D. Vance. They stand before the media. They answer questions for the American people. Kamala has not done this. Tim Walz has not done this. This is a problem. Is nobody concerned about this? I know a lot of us on the right are concerned about this, but the left seems to be completely okay with it. Hey, just whatever, man. She's getting stars up on the stage, and she's saying silly scripted things and putting together silly scripted videos where her and Tim sit together in a restaurant and joke about the palates of white people and just awkwardly smile at each other. It's really weird, to quote Tim Walz. So will we see any kind of change when the DNC happens? It starts on Monday. That's 2 days away, guys. It's Sunday, so that's tomorrow. Tomorrow starts the DNC. Are we going to see anything real from Kamala or Tim or any of the other Democrats for that matter? There's some people speculating that we're going to see something all right, but it's not going to be what we expect. But whatever happens, the DNC is going to be interesting. DNC. I bet Kamala probably hopes that it stands for do not come. Do not come.
Do not come. Put it in reverse. Do not come.
She may go to the border. I will have to circle back on that one.
Do not come. Do not come.
I expect at some time she may go to the border. We'll circle
You have to understand that there's a reason people are arriving at our border.
So how quickly does this change what we see at the border?
I don't know. I don't understand the point that you're making. There's not going to be a quick fix. I've been very clear from the beginning.
What her focus has been, what the assignment is to work with leaders. She's doing exactly what the president asked her to do.
It is insulting. It is embarrassing.
You have a message for would-be migrants. Don't come.
Do not come.
Put it in reverse.
Do not come.
She may go to the border. I will have to circle back on that one.
Do not come. Do not come.
I expect at some time she may go to the border. We'll circle back.
The reason that I'm in Guatemala is to address the reasons people leave home, flee. They want to stay. They don't want to leave. We are going to the border. We've been to the border. This whole thing about the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
Well, who does she not want to come? Probably all of the extremists that are going to be out in the parking lot. And these are not right-wingers. These are their people. they're people from all kinds of crazy walks of life. Here's an article from Kunstler.com from the Cluster F Nation blog. I love how it starts out. It's got a quote at the top from El Gato Malo. Speaking about the Democrats, he says, it's all projection of their own bad desires, bad actions, personal afflictions, to the point where the best way to tell what they plan to do is to see what they accuse others of. That is a true statement. He goes on to say, it's fun to muse on the torrent of panic, deranged texting between Democratic convention delegates as a runaway train of malignant fates, bad choices, insane policies, delusional ideas, and feral emotion drives them to nominate a moron for president. The confusion and self-doubt must be epic. Are we really going to do this? Is this really happening? You must imagine this is the same state of mind as, say, a car full of drunken bridesmaids fishtailing down the highway at 70 miles an hour towards a telephone pole. The misplays and subterfuges that brought them to this pass cannot be undone. The insult of letting Joe Biden front for a criminal blob government, the many hoaxes and the exorbitant lawlessness and gross mismanagement of public affairs, wreckage of institutions, ruined economy, devalued dollar, destruction of households and communities, sexual lunacy to the highest degree, and programmed mental illness. This is the party's legacy. That is a true statement, guys. This is the Democratic Party's legacy at this point. It's absolutely disgusting. Are none among them even a little bit ashamed of the damage they've done to this nation and maybe wondering about it between one another, perhaps even anxious to make it stop? You would hope so. And so the delegates head to Chicago. Ironic that they choose Chicago. I feel for anybody living up there. It's just absolutely been ravished by blue state policies. It's a city in civic freefall to either pretend to celebrate the capricious selection of utterly dubious leaders imposed on them by unseen hands, or just maybe to revolt against the evil cabal affecting to defend our democracy by squashing it. Of course, that's inside the convention. Lord knows what hijinks are being concocted for outside the United Center arena by the various tribes that run on hot yellow bile these dog days of summer. The Hamas mob, the sex freaks, Antifas, BLMs, assorted Bolsheviks, anarchists, utopians, climate change sob sisters. Gramsci, I don't know what that word is. Spartacists, Trotskyites, Jacobins, Fabians, and plain old riffraff out for fun and loot. The gigantic parking wasteland surrounding the United Center on West Madison Street has the look of a perfect battlefield. All that commences on Monday. In the meantime, much misdirection zings around the Trumpian opposition. He goes on to say a little later, he says, so stand by now to see whether Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will come out of next week's convention mixmaster the same way they went in, as bona fide candidates. At some point, Ms. Harris will have to demonstrate some fitness for high office besides being a go-go dancer and a laugh riot. Tim Walz acts so unhinged in front of every audience that I expect the campaign to stuff him in a broom closet when the convention is over. Should he actually still be on the ticket when all is said and done? It seems at this point that the brooding matron of Chappaqua will never get her turn in the White House after all. It must gall Hillary to see history change her out for an equity hire with half a brain. Politics is cruel business. You'll see just how cruel the next time you try to whack Mr. Trump in this no prisoners, end of the road election campaign. It will almost certainly get crazier from here. And guys, I do believe it is absolutely going to get crazier from here. This week is going to start a whole new chain of things going on. The DNC is going to really be something to pay attention to, because I do believe that there's some truth in all of what's being said here. It's going to be an absolute freak show, if we're being honest. An absolute freak show. And I don't believe that we're going to see, I don't believe everything's going to be the same once we come out the other side. Maybe she does come out still the party nominee, top of the ticket. Maybe. But there's some chatter behind the scenes that suggests otherwise. And why wouldn't they consider replacing her, honestly? Why wouldn't they consider another coup? The first coup was for Kamala. The next coup might be to get rid of Kamala. It would be a real shame, though, that the Democratic Party has sunk so low as to completely disregard the democratic process, the voting process, the election process, to simply pick and choose and slide in and slide out anybody they want. But I would not put it past them to do it. I don't think any one of us would at this point. I mean, it seems obvious that they have absolutely no concern for the way things are supposed to be in the country. And if you look at Kamala, she's not a strong candidate at this point. Heck, she's sliding in the polls just as fast as Biden did after the first debate. She's backing out of debates. She's given every excuse to not commit to the 3 debates, presidential debates, that Trump has challenged her to, and the 2 vice president debates that J.D. Vance has challenged Walz to. Instead, Kamala wants to just do one and see how the rest goes. Well, Kamala, we need to know who you are. We need to know what you stand for. You have flip-flopped on so many policies, and quite honestly, to this day, you've never really accomplished anything notable. You've had almost 4 years in the White House, and you've done nothing. People say, well, that's not true, and it's not true. You're right. Actually, she actually does have quite a few notable accomplishments. Let's take a look at those notable accomplishments right now. This is from the Daily Caller, one of their regular contributors there, a guy got by the handle Unmutual, @unmutual. You can look him up. He gets a lot of stuff there. He lists a whole bunch of her accomplishments. And I'm just going to read them off for you. So Kamala has sold off most of our strategic petroleum reserves to the Chinese. She allowed communist spy balloons, Chinese spy balloons, to cross our airspace unchallenged. Gave Ukraine almost $200 billion of American taxpayer dollars to support a shadow war with Russia. Encouraged Israel to cease fire in their action to fight terrorists after 1,200 Israelis were murdered. Boy, if that were 1,200 Americans, would she do the same thing? No justice for Americans? Probably. Gave the Taliban and terrorist organizations $80 billion worth of U.S. military technology and equipment. Personally donated money to extremist organizations that supported the BLM riots, promoted, dismantled the police policies, and lobbied for sanctuary cities and amnesty for criminal illegal aliens. Supports a national gun ban. Supports a national ban on offshore energy exploration and fracking, putting the United States at the mercy of foreign countries that hate us. She encouraged fascist, degenerate Antifa vermin and Marxist BLM reprobate goons to continue to riot. Do not stop were her exact words. Do not stop. Helped raise money to release violent criminals and domestic terrorists from jail, many of whom went on to commit more felonies and more crimes. Enabled the murder of 50 people, the hospitalization of 3,000 police officers, and over $2 billion in damages during the BLM riots. She did nothing while tens of thousands of black and brown women and children were trafficked into sex slavery. She allowed over 85,000 illegal alien children to go unaccounted for and missing. No one knows if they are alive or dead. She caused over 358,000 fentanyl-related deaths due to open border policies. Spent over $450 billion of U.S. taxpayer money giving illegal aliens free housing, free health care, free food, free education, free phones, free transportation, while American veterans go hungry and homeless. In fact, there was a story out not long ago where a veteran, I believe he was a veteran, was receiving government aid, and he gets like $100 and something a month, 130, I think, something to that effect, while one of these illegal aliens used their EBT card to pay for something at a bodega and left the receipt on the counter showing that she had a remaining balance of $13,000. $13,000.
Have y'all seen this receipt that's going viral from a bodega where they're saying a Venezuelan woman left this receipt behind showing an EBT food stamp balance of $13,401.82 and an EBT cash balance of $4,498.85? I just went down this rabbit hole and you are not going to believe what I found.
A migrant family of 4 in New York could get over 20 grand a month in freebies. 500 a night at a hotel, 130 a day for food, and having 2 kids in public school costs us 5 grand a month. We didn't even tack on Mayor Adams' $1,000 cash gift cards, the free health care at the ER, or the free phones and free lawyers, or the $400,000 in free college tuition per dreamer. Meanwhile, Taxpayers with jobs in New York pay thousands to live in a closet.
That is just incredible. I wish I could make $13,000 a month. That would be, we'd be set, wouldn't we, babe? Absolutely. That's more spent on illegal aliens than the Departments of Homeland Security, Education, State, and Energy combined. She has publicly stated that she will never treat people who cross the border as criminals, not even actual criminals. She encouraged 10 to 20 million illegal aliens to cross our borders, including tens of thousands of criminals, drug smugglers, human traffickers, terrorists, and communist Chinese spies. As borders are, this is Harris's top accomplishment. That is her top accomplishment in the White House at this point. Almost 4 years in the White House, and that is her top accomplishment. She put hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens on direct flights, direct from their home countries, across the southern border to 45 international U.S. airports in the interior USA. She cast the tie-breaking vote, and she actually likes to brag about this one, the tie-breaking vote on $2 trillion in unnecessary and wasteful spending, which led to our current inflation. She spent $7.5 billion to build a whopping total of 7 EV charging stations across the nation. That's about $1 billion a charging station. Surely they don't cost that much. Somebody ask Elon, how much them things cost? I don't think they cost that much. She led record inflation among the highest in the U.S. history, record personal credit card debt for Americans, record high food prices causing many Americans to go hungry, doubling of gas prices, the highest in the nation's history, record highest interest rates in the past 40 years, record budget deficits, highest national debt in U.S. history. Guys, you might be saying, oh, this ain't Kamala's accomplishments. These are Joe Biden's accomplishments. Well, I will remind you that since the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency, he has frequently, or not frequently, but adamantly referred to his administration as the Biden-Harris administration. This isn't Biden's policy. Kareem Jean-Pierre was just on the TV the other day telling Peter Doocy that Biden and Kamala are like this. There's no daylight between them. They completely 100% see eye to eye and work hand in hand on every policy that is in place today. So, like I said, these are her accomplishments. This is what Kamala has done in the past 3.5 years in the White House. You don't have to take my word for it. Kamala was actually on a campaign trail just the other day, speaking in front of a crowd, and she admitted all of these things herself. I'm going to show you a clip. This is Kamala Harris speaking about the current state of things following the pandemic. Well, the pandemic literally earmarked the end of Trump's presidency and the beginning of the Biden-Harris presidency. So everything you're about to hear her say here are her accomplishments, are created by her, are the problems that she's here to solve, yet they're also the problems that she created. These are her accomplishments. Let's take it from her mouth right here.
Everyday prices are too high. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. The bills add up. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes, prescription medication, the cost of food. A loaf of bread costs 50% more. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's a serious housing shortage. The price of housing has gone up. It's too difficult to build, and it's driving prices up. It is out of reach. The size of down payments have gone up as well. Costs are still too high. There's not much left at the end of the month, and prices are still too high.
Well, there you have it, guys. That is straight from her mouth about her own time in the White House. These are the things she's created. She is outlining for you the state of the nation under her leadership, while she simultaneously asks you to put her back in the White House for another 4 years. I don't know about you, but I don't think we could survive another 4 years under this type of leadership. I sure hope you will see it that way too, because guess what, guys? The elections are just around the corner. What do we got, like 80, 90 days left? Be prepared to vote, because, well, everything depends on it. Everything depends on it. Everything we know here in America as our way of life depends on you not voting for this person in November. I mean, you can, but it's ill-advised. Ill-advised. Guys, that is really all I've got for you here today. I hope this was informative. I hope that you're hearing the truth and you're appreciating the truth we're trying to put out. I hope you'll share this video. It'd be a real huge positive for us if you could help us get this truth out there, because right now the Google tube is absolutely shadow banning us as hard as they can because they don't like the things we're saying. Like I said, This is state media. They're paid for, they're bought, and they're doing her bidding. So let's push past the AI algorithms that are designed to keep us from speaking, and let's make sure that the truth gets out. November 5th, guys, get out and vote. But until then, be blessed, be free, and tune in next week right here, guys, on the Southern Drawl Podcast. We can't wait to see you. See you then.